So we've looked at the relationship between price and quantity demanded. But what about some other relationships, such as the relationship between consumers' income and the quantity demanded of a product? Here we're interested in the concept of income elasticity of demand. So, just as we've seen before, we'll look at a quantitative relationship between a cause, a change in income measured as a percentage, and an effect, the change in the quantity demanded as a percentage. And we're interested here in the responsiveness of quantity demanded to a change in consumers' income. We can represent it, again, just as before, with a ratio. We can call this ratio of effect in percentage terms over cause in percentage terms as the income elasticity of demand coefficient. So, let's say we found that for a 10% increase in income, there was a resultant 3% increase in the quantity demanded of a product. Income goes up, quantity demanded goes up, but not by the same proportion. So we have a coefficient of 0.3, meaning for a 1% increase in income, there is a 0.3% increase in the quantity demanded. When we find that this kind of relationship holds, income goes up, quantity demanded goes up, we classify the good in question as a quote-unquote normal good. And it's classified, it's just definitional. If income rises, quantity demanded rises as a result, by definition, the product in question is classified as a normal good. Now, we can subdivide this category of normal goods into necessities and superior goods. So a necessity here is a normal good, so when your income rises, the quantity demanded rises, but the quantity demanded does not rise proportionate to income. So that is, we would have a coefficient that is positive, but less than 1. Because the numerator will be smaller than the denominator. So in this case, a necessity, you might be thinking of something like food is a necessity, so you would imagine that the income elasticity of demand would be positive, but relatively small. On the other hand, you could have goods which are sometimes classified as superior. They're also sometimes called luxury items or non-necessities. And in this case, by definition, a superior good or a luxury good is one where the increase in the quantity demanded is greater proportionally than the increase in the income. So, for example, if income were to increase by 1% and the quantity demanded as a result increased by 5%, we would say that this would be an example of a normal luxury good or a superior good. What if we found this? A 1% decrease in income, decrease here indicated by the negative sign, results in a 5% decrease in the quantity demanded, negative sign. Again, the coefficient is the same as we just saw before. The coefficient is 5. So again, this indicates to us that this is a good that falls under the category of normal, that is, there's a positive relationship between income and the quantity demanded, and falls within the subcategory of superior. Okay? But what if we had something like this? A 2% increase in income results in a 4% decrease in the quantity demanded. The decrease indicated by the negative sign there. So we get a coefficient that's -2, an income elasticity of demand coefficient that's -2. Meaning, for a 1% increase in income, there's a 2% decrease in the quantity demanded. Why would that be the case? That seems a bit odd. You become richer and you buy less of the product. Well, in this case, we would say that we're dealing with what's by definition called an inferior good. So an inferior good just means a good where there is an inverse or negative relationship between the income of the consumer and the quantity demanded. As their income goes up, they buy less of the inferior product. As their income goes down, that is, that they become poorer, they buy more of the inferior product. So you could possibly think of some examples of that sort of thing. As your income rises, you tend to stop buying home brand frozen pizzas and start buying normal or superior quality pizzas. But if you, for example, lose your job, you become unemployed, so your income falls substantially, you'll probably cut back on superior goods and you might increase the quantity demanded of inferior goods such as home brand frozen pizzas. So, why is it that some goods are classified as normal and subclassified as necessities or superior, and other goods are classified as inferior products? And doesn't really matter anyway. Well, we can think of various factors. You could have an almost endless list of factors which could influence whether a good is classified as a normal or an inferior good. But I think we can break it down into two main areas. One is that there can be objective characteristics or objective properties of a product that make it in some way better than available alternatives. So we might say an Audi sports car is objectively superior to a Datsun 180B, or objectively superior to a 1984 Ford Falcon. So it's superior in every way. It's better fuel efficiency, it's faster, it's got better acceleration, it lasts longer, it looks better by the standards of anyone who has eyes, and so on. It has objective characteristics which make it superior to something else. It also might be the case that there are subjective qualities as well. That is, there's the perception of quality. That is not something that's in the product itself, but rather is in the mind of the consumer. So, for example, if we take the case of McDonald's, although some people might regard it as an inferior product, and in fact some studies in some countries suggest that McDonald's hamburgers are an inferior product, and we know that because when consumers' incomes rise, they decrease their demand for McDonald's hamburgers, and they start buying, better quality hamburgers and better quality meals in general. But when their incomes fall, there's a recession, unemployment goes up, people's incomes fall, there can be an increase in the demand for McDonald's products. So in some countries, a recession is good news for McDonald's. But in other countries, not necessarily. It will depend on perceptions of McDonald's. So for example, in the 1990s, so I'm told, when McDonald's first came to Pakistan, people regarded McDonald's as a superior product, as a luxury good. And people would get dressed up as if they were going out to a fancy restaurant, get dressed up in nice clothes, and go to McDonald's for a restaurant meal. If people's incomes rose, they would tend to consume more McDonald's. It was perceived to be superior. But that's not necessarily the case in other countries. It's not something inherent in the product itself. It's about the perceptions within the culture. You can also have just bandwagon behavior. That is, once certain people start to say that a product is better than others, then you'll get other people who are followers will pile on, and they will start to also think the product is a superior product. And in that case, when their incomes rise, they'll tend to buy more of that particular product. You can probably think of your own examples of that kind of phenomenon. And of course, there's persuasive advertising, which tries to convince people that a certain product is superior to others. So, the burgers are better at Hungry Jack's is advertising designed to convince you that the product being offered by Hungry Jack's is superior to alternatives. It's qualitatively better. Whether it is or not is kind of beside the point. Some people think that it's objectively better than McDonald's. But I think it's largely, from the perspective of advertisers, this is largely about changing perceptions. It's not about changing the nature of the product.